Om Niranjanam Nityam Anantarupam Bhaktanukampa Vigraham Vai Ishavataram Parameshamnityam Tam Ramakrishna Tirsanama. Namaste everyone. We are studying the Bhagavad Gita. Please ignore this Pratyavijna Hridayam sitting at the bottom of and we are revising the chapter 13, going through the sutras. For a couple of last sessions, we have been studying the jnana part of it, the knowledge, verses 7 to 11. We're putting a little bit of emphasis there because that is what we will practice. The rest is knowledge that puts into its framework how the whole philosophy sits. Where's the Jivatma, where's the Paramatma, how did this experience of this world that we have comes about by the combination of Purusha and Prakriti, and what is the goal of what does Mukti mean, separation of the Kshetra and Kshetrajna. All those concepts are there. Good to know all those things, but when it comes to practice, what are we really going to do? That's why we are putting a little bit more emphasis in trying to understand not only those prescribed disciplines, but really what happens in our mind space when we practice those disciplines. So when we have some clarity, then we are a bit more enthusiastic about the practice, and we also understand what to expect and not to expect. Does it mean that if we do a little bit of Japan meditation, do you expect some fantastic spiritual experiences to come? Or after our discussions in the last 2-3 weeks, you understand how this mind is constituted because of the way we have been engaging the mind with the world or in spiritual thought. And all those thoughts, words, and deeds leave an impression on the mind. These are called samskaras. If the mind is directed externally, extroverted, or what is called the pravritti, then the samskaras that are generated are related to the external material world, and we denoted that as a little vritti, as a whirlpool that is clockwise, and they are all what we call worldly samskaras because of worldly activities and worldly thoughts and deeds. On the other hand, when the same mind is introverted, directed inwards towards nivritti, then it is it concentrates or prays to some divine form, some divine being, and that also creates a vritti in the mind. And those vrittis are called spiritual vrittis. And they too leave their samskaras there, impressions. And when you look back at your own life since childhood, and of course, we don't have access to the previous samskaras from previous lifetimes, but even in this lifetime, and ask yourself, okay, what type of vrittis have I been creating since childhood? What's the majority of it? And you will find that invariably, for most people, it is to do with the external world. Natural tendency of the senses is to go out through the 5 senses, and the body to work through the physical organs, karmendriyas. And therefore, all those engagements since childhood and our studies through primary school, secondary school, university, and then at workplace, at home, engagement with what the world feeds us through the news, the TV, the media, and neighbors, family, friends, and all those conversations we have, engagements we have been leaving impressions on the mind. And the sum total of the mind is then dictated by these impressions. So, on the other hand, now and then also through puja, through japa, through meditation, at certain times of the day, at certain times of the year, on various occasions, we do have been trying to create the spiritual vrittis. For most people, you'll find that the worldly vrittis, samskaras, are more dominant than the spiritual ones. And that is the reason why the mind is extroverted and disposed to go to the external world. And when you try to meditate, which means turning the mind inwards, focusing on some divine form, then you find this worldly samskaras forcefully drag the mind out into something. And everyone comes and complains, oh, I can't concentrate. But here, I hope you understand what is the rationale. How do you understand? Uh, and that is good to understand that, because then it's not just simply talking, I can't concentrate, and then expecting something miraculous to happen just because you happen to sit for 20 minutes of meditation or do half an hour of japa. We become more realistic and practical, knowing how the mind is constituted. In the beginning, it might be a bit disconcerting, and the struggle with the mind is a bit hopeless, you might feel. But then you understand there is no other way. And we are the authors of our own mind. This mind hasn't been created by anyone else, by us only. But we also, now that we know how it has been formed, we also know how it can be reformed. And that's uh, the light at the end of the tunnel. There is hope. And over the last 2-3 classes, I hope you have been able to understand the rationale behind these teachings of Sri Krishna, where he's given these disciplines starting with Amanitvam, Adambhitvam, verse 7 to verse 11, where in terms of these vrittis and samskaras that he's trying to generate in our mind, or encourage us to do that, is really very, very scientific, rational, and practical. Having understood that, we should then stop philosophizing too much, go down to the nitty-gritty, and start practicing. You don't need to know all this philosophy if you have that simple faith in the teachings of the great teachers. Those who don't have that shraddha, they would like to understand things intellectually and measure everything through their own mind, a mind which is not designed to grasp subtle things, a mind that has been trained in the external world and can understand in terms of the external vrittis that it has formed. So that is not the best tool. To keep it very simple, like Swami Vivekananda says, to do good, to be good. That is the whole of religion. I have never come across a definition like that, but when you think in terms of what we have been discussing over the last couple of weeks, you can see the rationale. What he's trying to say is that, look, the goodness is within us at the inner dimension of it. When we are connected to that, that energy flows, and the result that happens, our thoughts are good, automatically our actions are also good. And what we are trying to do, what he's trying to say is, keep on creating the spiritual samskaras. Keep on creating some spiritual samskaras. Don't worry about the result immediately. We know we have got a steep hill to climb because the ball has rolled down quite a bit in the worldly direction. But every step in the spiritual direction is the investment, spiritual investment. And at some point, through hard effort, a lot of practice and patience and perseverance, we would be able to reach a particular balancing point, so to say, where the sum total of spiritual samskaras have become sufficiently strong enough to overpower the worldly samskaras. And then you find the balance, the seesaw tilts over on the other side, and you say, the ball is rolling down the other direction, and things become easier. The natural tendency of the mind at that time becomes directed inwards, and one seeks spiritual company, enjoys spiritual practices, likes their own solitude, loves spiritual studies. Mind has become purer, and the spirit of the scriptures also come out much clearer, and there's great understanding, and all one after the other, they keep on adding. and supporting, and that mind is now called a spiritual mind, and the person who is also called a spiritual person. So I hope we have been able to cover up to that point. I have discussed these ideas to have some clarity up to that particular point. If you have any questions about what I have discussed and what we have been discussing over the last 2-3 weeks, you can ask now, and otherwise we will just continue. Anyone up there? No, all good. All right.
So Swamiji, sorry,
Yeah,
this British,
British.
they
Yeah,
can be deed, they can be deed, actions, words, or anything like that.
thoughts, words, deeds.
Okay.
Okay,
And
so
actions.
yeah, deeds means actions. Yeah.
Ah,
So
okay.
everything starts with a thought, So if you
Yeah.
deeply inside, you are thinking of so many things, but you're not saying everything. Even that activity of thinking is called a mental activity. Meditation is an activity, but a mental activity. Okay. But it might be expressed a little deeper, where the words that you're talking to yourself, you might say to somebody else. Okay. So that becomes speech. All right. That has taken some shape. Conversation we have had. Study this, what we're having is called thought words. And then it might become even more expressed, and that's when it becomes action. But there's a flow. Okay, there's a flow from the subtle, the causal, very fine, becomes a little bit grosser, and it becomes what you call materialized into actions. So all of them represent different stages of the flow of that energy outwardly, and they leave their impression. And so if you do something once, it gives a little impression. You do it with great focus and intensity, great concentration, great passion. It leaves a deeper impression. And when you repeat it again and again and again, then the mind naturally begins to flow in that vritti. And that's what you call a habit. That's how, and that's what we call learning things. Okay, you're typing or driving or something like that. You're doing something again and again and again, and the samskaras are becoming stronger and stronger and stronger. At some point, it will run on the auto mode. So you call a habit.
Thank you. Thank you, Swamiji.
All right. So we have got this verse here in the I think we discussed this last time. But the general idea is that, look, in this disciplines here, if you say through each one of them, if I draw the, okay, not this one. By now, this drawing should become very much clear in your mind as a reference point. So we say, this is the divine inside us. That's what we want to, that's what we really are. But we have drifted down from that and descended to some lower point within us, and the mind has come down to this level, say. So the options are, mind is sometimes directed outwards, called pravritti, sometimes inwards, called nivritti, during your prayer, meditation, and all that. When it's engaging outside, it's creating some vrittis here in this way, that is called, or samskaras, which you call worldly samskaras and all that. And when it's directed inwards, it has got its opposite effect. That's we call nivritti or spiritual samskaras. And if you look at these verses 7 to 11 and try to rationalize in terms of formation of vrittis and samskaras, what Sri Krishna is trying to do. You'll find that what he's trying to do through the spiritual practice, you'll find that he will try to do two things. One, through all those activities, try to create the spiritual samskaras, unwinding. Turning the screwdriver in the anti-clockwise direction, it unwinds the screw. Okay, so certain things are there. And the other tendency by which this worldly samskaras could have been created, he is trying to prevent them. Okay, So we'll say two options are there: creating spiritual samskaras and the second would be uh, preventing worldly samskaras. We called the first one we called nivritti, and the down one is called pravritti. So he's saying no to pravritti and yes to nivritti. So that will be our two code words. All right. And we'll try to look at those teachings in terms of and classify them. So then it becomes a very good yardstick and a way to make a decision in your life when you are challenged in a situation and you put a pause and say, what is happening to me internally in my mind space? Whatever you're doing, talking with people or watching TV or movie or engaging in some spiritual thing, you are asking this question simultaneously. This is creating some samskaras, and I'm going to have a lot of clarity in my mind whether these are nivritti, which is creating spiritual samskaras, we'll call it category S, okay, and or this is sort of preventing worldly samskaras, which is category. Let's not call it S, we'll call it N. That is why it is called nivritti. So N category N and pravritti. No, not pravritti. It will be preventing pravritti. So NP. Okay, because you'll see he's not trying to ask us to create pravritti. He will say preventing pravritti. All right. So now let us go. Are you good there, everyone? We'll go back into our sutras in here and look at this. So he says, Indriyartheshu vairagyam. So we look at the drawing very quickly. How can I get this? So you can draw something here, I think. Okay. So Indriyartheshu, these are the Indriyas, and things out there are the arthas of Indriyas, sense objects. So these are the senses and sense objects. So Indriyartheshu means this thing. Vairagyam means you're not attached to it, you're having dispassion to them. You're not trying to get your mind go out. Okay, don't go to the restaurant, don't go to the movie, don't go to the cruise, don't go to things where your mind is trying to feed and all these worldly samskaras. Okay, so and if you do that, so he's trying to say you are trying to prevent the formation of spiritual worldly sense. So that will be NP. No to pravritti. Anahankar evacha. The sense of I-ness, that identification with something, I am. Either I am the body, here, I am the mind, I am the ego. That is also a type of limitation. So, and that is limits the and separate. That is like trying to be a wave rather than the ocean, because this is where the I is there. So that is called anahankara. Ahankara means I-ness, not I, not I, not I. And earlier we said, don't go around boasting about yourself, praising yourself, seeking recognition, praise, whatever you do. This ego has to be conquered, not exaggerated and amplified in this world, in this way. Then he says, Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi, Dukkha. So Janma is birth. Of course, here it means birth of the body. So here is talking about that level. Okay. Mrityu, of course, Mrityu of the body. death. Okay, Jara is old age. All of us are going through that slowly, daily, or every second. Vyadhi, disease, disease of the body, also the mind. Dukkha, when some unpleasant suffering is there, mostly it's with the body and sometimes with the mind. This are the five changes that are happening, changes that are happening. Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi, Dukkha. What to do? Those anudarshanam. Anudarshanam means to see very clearly. Have that clarity that this is not a very good state to be in. That I have been born is not something to be celebrated. Okay, it's a path as a result of past karma that has forced me to be embodied here, and I'm here to suffer out all those karmas and experiences there. No point going and wishing somebody happy birthday. Okay, let that person work out and pray that they are not born again in this world. The reason why we don't do that, because we know no better that the highest state of the Atman is absolutely bliss. It's immortal. There, we are not prisoners of the mind, prisoners of the body, not bound to suffer in ignorance and misery. When that knowledge is not there, then we make a big deal about this human life and we want to come back to it. But from a spiritual perspective, Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi, Dukkha, Dosh, Anudarshanam. So those in whom that spiritual eye, buddhi, has awakened, they don't make a big deal about this human life, knowing that this is a very inferior state of existence compared to the glory of our Atman nature. Right? So basically in this verse, he is saying, we make a big fuss about this physical enjoyments and thing, experience of the senses outwards, restrain that. Okay, don't let the mind go out. Why? Because they are continuously going to leave those samskaras, and that samskaras will be the cause to bring us back into this world. That is the reason for the future imprisonment in this body. So I'm going to restrain myself. And that's why people in the olden days would, who are very, very serious about getting out of this world, out of this samsara chakra, would retreat into some forest and go and away from society and people, and then engage themselves in spiritual life, in contemplation, or in this age, at least they will get out of some the bigger society and go and live in some ashrama in the company of similar like-minded spiritual seekers, where the time is spent in a spiritual company and spiritual engagements with minimum contact with the external world. And only when they are ready to come out in this world, so that the world does not sweep them off their feet, then they will come and engage with the world with the understanding that what appears to be a human being is really the divine being, and I will deal with them, serve them in that spirit. Until that stability has been acquired through sincere practice and training, they would not venture forth so easily. And that's the method you will see in the Ramakrishna mission: Shiva Jnane Jiva Seva. Okay, the human being in front of you is really Shiva, but without spiritual understanding, we'll call him a ordinary human being and deal with them accordingly. Our perception of the world is our according to our perception of ourselves. So as we practice our spiritual practices, sadhana, our own minds become pure and we begin to feel that we are really a spiritual being having a human experience. As we see ourselves, likewise we will see outside others also. When we have achieved in that understanding and experience, then only we should feel safe to go out and interact with the world, and then it is safe, because then you say, my people that I deal with, it doesn't mean that's only for monks, if anyone for that matter. My wife is the divine mother in this form, my husband is the Lord Shiva in this form, my child is baby Krishna in this form, but the divine is seen and not the external form only. And you serve them, take care of them, but now you are dealing with those people, so-called people, as embodiments of divinity. Until that is done, if that is, unless that is done, that engagement with the people in a very worldly way will become a cause of bondage. And bondage means, in its train, it will bring suffering, misery, sooner or later. Okay. So that is verse 18. Let us look at verse 19. Asaktir anabhiswanga putra dara grihadishu nityam cha samachittatvam ista anista upapattishu. Asakti means being without attachment. Why do we become attached? Because we are fond of something. You're fond of your pet, your cat, your dog, your children, your house, your money, your car, and all those things. When you are fond of something, your mind wants to dwell on that. And every time it dwells on that with the sense of this is mine, or that is I belong to them, it's creating that vritti. What type of vritti? A worldly vritti. Okay. So what type asakti anabhiswanga regarding what? Putra dara griha adishu. Adi means etc. Putra means son, means daughter also. Dara means wife or husband, vice versa. Griha means house. Adishu means, okay, basically in this category of material world of people and things. And you extend that list and say, what are the things that define me, that I think belong to me, that holds me attached to this world? And you'll find there might be a big lot for many people. Others, it might be short list and say, hey, I have had experience, I know इस दुनिया में कोई किसी का नहीं है, like that, you have some knocks and blows and you very quickly understand no one belongs to you, but that comes through experience. So in the drawing again, if we put, right, so here we are, and your mind is at that level. So asakti and absence of fondness, okay, son, people, wife, okay, griha, house, adishu, etc., etc. Basically, all of them are external things, outsiders. And you are engaging, when you are engaging the mind towards them, they are creating a worldly vritti. Okay. And from morning to evening, you are just busy with them in this way. And you come back home and ask yourself, so what did I do today? And you'll find you got a whole load of worldly vrittis. And then you wonder why nothing is happening spiritually. Okay. So it gives you some good insight here. Time to reflect. Nothing wrong with the world, the work you're doing. It doesn't mean that you have to abandon your children and wife and husband and all those things and try to run into some forest. Why? You'll run there, the mind will also go with you. But the secret is, with the help of this knowledge, spiritual knowledge, that externally what appears to be a human being, the physical body and the mind, it's essentially in that reality, they are a spiritual being. I will try to train myself to have that spiritual insight. And that's where all this study and sadhana and contemplation and meditation comes. You keep on doing it until what we call that spiritual eye of understanding comes. All right. Physically, you will see a physical human being, male, female, brown, black, white, whatever. When you put the Vedanta glasses, the spiritual glasses, so to say, you should say, okay, what appears to be a person there, that what my eyes are showing, my spiritual knowledge is showing to me, explaining to me that there's a spiritual being in there. Okay. And let me deal with that same person in this way, in a spiritual way. Then you are safe. But when you do it in a very gross, non-spiritual way, then it creates a worldly samskara. So there's a example. There was one elderly devotee who came to Sri Ramakrishna. He must have taught her to meditate on God and this and that. And then one day she came back and complained to Sri Ramakrishna and says, oh, I can't meditate, When I try to meditate, my mind goes out somewhere. So Sri Ramakrishna asks, where does it go? Oh, I have got a little nephew. He is, little baby. So I love him very much. And every time I sit down and meditate, my mind begins to think about him. Sri Ramakrishna says, no problem there. Try to think that their nephew, within your nephew's heart, dwells. Somebody has got his music on. Yeah, within that child is Krishna. And so when you feed that child, think that you're feeding Krishna, you're giving the bath, or whatever you do this. So what he did was he changed the perspective. That's it. He doesn't say don't worship the child or don't save the child anymore. He spiritualized how that child is now to be pursued. And he says, it's written there, that lady, people not very educated in degree wise and all those things, but having purity of mind and Shraddha, sincerely began to practice that. And she made great spiritual progress. So it's about how we are approaching the world in an enlightened way or in an ignorant way. What the Bhagavad Gita and the scriptures, the Upanishads and others try to give to us is the spiritual perspective. So when you're reading, you're listening to this discussion today, some of the samskaras are being created there. Okay, which is good. That is Shravan, listening. Manan means I'm going to contemplate on that. What does that mean? I'm going to review this again and again and again and strengthen that samskara so that it becomes sufficiently strong. Nididhyasan, I'm going to really meditate on that idea that is there. So Shravan, Manan, Nididhyasan. Those things should follow during the week as you go in the midst of your activities, so at least morning and evening. Take some idea and whatever you like, a spiritual practice, and dwell very deeply so that the samskara, the spiritual samskara of that idea becomes very strong and comes to your rescue when the worldly mind drifts down towards worldly directions, a type of sin. This retraining of the mind or reprogramming of the mind, creating this spiritual samskaras in the mind is the really starting hard work in spiritual life. And many people despair and say, oh, it's so difficult and this and that. But I hope you can see why it is. You have to be very, very vigilant in spiritual life. We can't be very casual and say, okay, a little bit of japa meditation I do, rest of the day I can do anything and everything and then expect some wonderful miraculous spiritual experience. No, the mind that is seeking to have a genuine spiritual experience has to be very, very vigilant about the spiritual ideal and very, very alert about what is happening internally. They say it is like the eye of a person. If you throw some dust or sand at the eye, immediately the defense mechanism comes. Because if the eyes are open and the sand goes in, then it's going to be very irritating. But your eyelids shut down and keep those things out. Likewise, the eyelids of the mind, so to say, should have these shutters. When a negative idea or a worldly idea or something is coming, it should put down the shutters, put the firewall on and say, you're not allowed. I know that is going to be harmful to me. It'll undo all the other good thing I'm doing spiritually. I'm morning and evening, I'm sincerely trying to meditate. And then during the day, if I consume all these things, I just undo all the good work I have done. If that alertness comes, then you'll find that your mind itself will become a friend and you'll have the willpower and at least the, to say discrimination to say no to something that could be apparently very nice, enjoyable, like right now people will talk about election and politics and sports and this and that, and you can sit down for an hour and talk about all those things and have a good time. But then you think about it, so what happened in there? Anything good came out of it spiritually? No. What happened? So much rubbish I have collected in my mind. And once one analyzes that, becomes introspective and reflective, then you'll find your mind itself will become your teacher and say what one should do, what one should not do. So, asaktir anabhiswanga putra dara grihadisu nityam cha samachittatvam. Nityam means constantly, always. Samachittatvam. Chitta means mind. Sama means same. So, samachitta is maintaining equanimity, balance, the equilibrium, not letting your mind swing away too much left and right type of thing. In the midst of success and failure, try to maintain the balance and say, okay, good time comes, that's all right. It's not going to remain there forever. When bad time comes, difficult time comes also, you remind yourself, that's not also going to be there forever. In the midst of all, try to maintain a balance. That maintaining that balance is called yoga. Samatvam yogam uchyate. There's a definition given in the Bhagavad Gita. What is yoga? By Shri Krishna, and he says, maintaining that equanimity. Samatvam yogam uchyate. Sukha dukkha samekritva labha labha jaya jayo. Sukha and dukkha samekritva. Happiness and misery. Labha, you gain something. Alabha, you lose something. Jaya, victory. Ajaya, defeat. All these things are part of life. In here, in this world, everything swings. Nothing is steady. One moment it's good, next moment it is gone. So in the midst of all these waves, try to maintain a balance, be a spectator, don't get carried by the wave away. Just say this too will pass. Okay. So nityam cha samachittatam ista anista upapatyasu. Ista means that what is desirable. Desirable thing would be good health, good money, good success, and all those things. Anista, it's opposite. No, both will come. In the midst of all this, ista anista upapatyasu, desirable and undesirable, to maintain a balance. So this is something to test. Spiritual life doesn't mean only that you have to sit japa and meditation. It is to be tested out in the midst of various activities at work, when interacting with people. How easily they unsettle you. Okay, those people who are very touchy and very sensitive, they are totally at the mercy of the world. Anyone can make them stand up and be happy, and next person can make them miserable. That is only slavery to somebody out there. That is not freedom. That is not self-control. What we want is that inner balance, inner center of gravity, where the external world is not able to touch us. And that happens as we go more and more within ourselves. So you can see here, all these things are about not creating the worldly samskaras. Okay, NP. And then he talks about verse 10, Mai cha ananya yogena bhakti abhivicharini vivikta desha sevitum arati jana samsadi. So, and have unswavering devotion to me. Who is me? Doesn't mean Vasudeva Krishna, who was born in Dwarka. It means the Atman inside us. He resides in our own heart. How? With single-minded concentration, devotion, unswavering devotion. Mai cha ananya yogena. Anya means other. Ananya means not other. Not thinking of many things. Keeping the whole mind focused on that divine consciousness that is within us, or a representation of the divine consciousness, which is our chosen ideal. And how do we do? Bhakti. Unswavering bhakti. Not today I like this and tomorrow I like that type of thing, one pointed devotion. So what's happening there? All right, look at our drawing again. So in that we have our drawing. Your mind level is here, and this is the Atman. Okay, this is when he says capital me, that means the Atman, and he says, engage your mind towards me, and what will happen? Maicha ananya yogena bhakti vicharani. If somebody is practicing that, that is constraint creating the spiritual samskaras. Okay, the more we do, the better it is. And it can be done in different ways. One is, of course, you repeat the mantra. The mantra itself has got a spiritual energy. That energy is unleashed when the mantra is repeated with great concentration. Sometimes people think these are some words that are just people are muttering and repeating mechanically. God knows what's happening. No, everything is to be conceived of, or can be conceived of, as energy. We need energy, whether it's physically or mentally or spiritually. For example, when you talk about physical energy, then you consume food. Food is soul energy that was caught by the plant and stored as starch in a potato, and now you're eating it. So when you ingest it and you break it down, then you release some enzymes into it, it becomes absorbed, sugars and vitamins and proteins into the bloodstream, and then it goes into the cell, enters through the cell wall, not cell wall, cell membrane, inside and goes to the mitochondria, and there is something called, we learned in biology, called Krebs cycle. And when that releases energy, you feel the inner warmth, maintains the body temperature and the physical activities. So all that was necessary to release the energy in food, and if any of that part is cycle process is broken, then the final result of that energy is not released. So the ideas, spiritual ideas that we are discussing now, they are like spiritual food, and that food also has to be digested. Okay, so eating is Shravan. Thinking about it again and again and again is digesting it, Manan. Okay, churning it in there. Nididhyasan is like meditating on it. It has to enter into the cell and the energy has to be released. That whole process of Shravan, Manan, Nididhyasan is to be practiced. And so when the mantra is very, very powerful. Within it, it contains tremendous amount of spiritual energy, but that energy has to be unleashed, just like the energy in food had to be unleashed through this process. Likewise, by contemplating on the mantra, by meditating on the meaning of the mantra, by identifying yourself with the energy of the mantra, with this understanding, this is the secret of japa, that I and my chosen ideal and the mantra are one and the same. They are not different, that God is something else and I am somebody else and there's a separation. No, the three are really one, that appears to be three. And as I meditate or link myself with that higher divine form, that is my chosen ideal, with the help of the mantra is the connecting password, so to say. Okay, so you got a small device and you got a Wi-Fi system, you require a password and you connect it. The moment it's connected, then the data begins to flow, type of thing, in a very gross way, if we say. Likewise, the divine is that cosmic energy, the jiva is that limited. Somewhere, some connection has to be made. And that connectivity comes through the help of that mantra. So at the time of japa and meditation, you should not feel that there is some divine that dwells in my heart and I'm repeating some mantra. No, actually, the attitude or right perspective should be that which is represented in the divine form and that which is represented, the energy that is in me and the energy of the mantra are all three in its perfected form. And the ultimate goal is to feel the oneness of the three. And that repetition of the mantra will facilitate that process by converging the two until they meet in that oneness. And that's how, as the mantra becomes more and more concentrated, concentration on the mantra becomes deep, then it brings about that convergence and ultimately in the mergence, oneness of that. So, Maicha Ananya Yogena Bhakti Avicharini. That means the Jivatma now contemplates on the Paramatma. How? With unswavering devotion and single-minded concentration. Then, so that is about creating all this spiritual vrittis. All right, that we get there. Vivikta Desha Sevitvam Arati Jana Samsadi. Vivikta means that is solitary and clean place. Desh means place. Going to a place which is going into solitude, going into a retreat. Retreat doesn't mean like sometimes we get together and have so many discussions and all those things. Retreat means, like I had mentioned in last retreat, about going into a place where you can enter into your own self. That's the idea. Away from all the people, distractions, going into solitude. So that is Vivikta Desha Sevitam. At least some type of training has to be given to the mind for you to enjoy your own company. That after some hours one day I feel very, very restless, I need to talk to somebody, and then you call somebody, hey, what's happening, what are you doing, or let's go out there, type of thing. That's what happens when people get a long weekend. But a spiritual person says, okay, I'm getting a long Easter weekend, what a wonderful opportunity. Get out of all these places, find myself somewhere, and I leave my phone or whatever behind in the world, and I take maybe some books, set myself a beautiful retreat routine, and I'm going to, okay, give myself an experience of diving deep into myself. And then only you'll get a feel and taste of it. Oh, that was so nice. In the beginning was a little bit of struggle and all that, but after some time you find that inner peace and joy, and when the mind becomes calm, then a different type of energy begins to experience yourself within yourself, and you find that is so elevating, uplifting. So once you have that experience, only then you will be inclined to do that. Otherwise, you are a trouble to yourself and trouble to others also. So vivit desha sevitam arati jana samsadi. Jana means public, crowd. People, jana means people. Samsadi means a crowd of people. And most people love to be in a crowd. Okay, so get together in the weekend with some people, go and meet some friends, socialize, party, or this or that. A spiritual person says, oh, I just don't like this crowd of people. It is a very negative. So rati means you enjoy. Arati means a dislike, lack of delight in a crowd of people. Why? All this crowd of people are out here. What do they talk about? Wholesome worldly things only. When you engage with them, your mind is engaging with their ideas and thoughts. What is happening? That is creating all these worldly samskaras in your mind. And all the rubbish, if you bring in there and put in the dust, make your mind as a dustbin, then it will stink at some point. So that alertness is there. In these
Brilliant.
discussions,
I said brilliant.
Yeah. So these discussions, all of those things, we are trying to just not say why these disciplines are to be practiced. All of them, we are trying to go a little deeper and say, what is the impact of that in our mind? I'm going to have some clarity on that. And you'll find, my God, look, carelessly, I have been doing all these things unknowingly because I had nothing better to do. And now I wonder why nothing is happening in my spiritual life, this and that. Yeah. So all these things, if you can think in terms of the vrittis that are being created in your mind, and why Sri Krishna is prescribing all these things. Okay, that makes sense. Otherwise, says he is trying to make me antisocial. I should not enjoy company of my friends and family and this and that. What's wrong with that? People might say it's simply harmless. No, you can say it's not so harmless. That is very, very harmful from a spiritual perspective. Okay, then he comes to 11. Adhyatma jnana nitatvam tattva jnanartha darshanam etad jnanam iti proktam ajnanam yadatho annatha. So, Adhyatma Jnana Nityatvam. Adhyatma Jnana means knowledge of the self. So, we draw our drawings back again. Okay, here you go. And Adhyatma Jnana, spiritual self. Anything to do with the spiritual, I'm going to engage myself. What is that? Chanting some nice stotras, listening to some bhajans, reading some spiritual book, and studying some scriptures, doing my japa, doing my meditation, anything that is whose subject matter is the self. So that's Adhyatma Gyan Nitatvam. How? Always steadfastly, as much as possible. Yeah, so you might have some sort of discipline. Okay, in the morning I'll get up, have shower and go to my shrine and light the lamp outside. Then I'll try to light the lamp of light inside me by placing the divine and repeat the mantra and meditate on him. At least put some time limit or so many malas I will do, so half an hour or something. And then I'll put on some nice bhajans while I'm going around eating and all those type of things, or something is going around, some spiritual thought. Or even better than that, when you finish your japa and meditation, just don't get up. You see, that half an hour of meditation is probably the best quality mind you have in the 24 hours. Because you have attained to that degree of calmness and sattva through some real solid spiritual work. That mind is the best mind to be applied to the study of some spiritual topic. Whether it's a verse of the Gita, then that fine, subtle mind will grasp that subtle meaning of the scripture better than at any other time of the day. So that should not be squandered and wasted away. So most people will keep some scripture next to where they sit down for meditation. And when they finish the meditation, they'll open and read. Read for 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, but apply that subtle mind onto that. And then they might put some bhajans and this and that, or whatever you somehow maintain a spiritual current throughout the day. Right? Because nityatvam. And in the midst of the work, try to practice. I'll try to maintain that balance. I'll not lose my cool. I'll not get angry. I will not disturb others. I will try to keep as much as possible to myself and not engage in unnecessary conversation meet unnecessary people. That means you safeguard yourself, protect your mind, have the firewall. There are a lot of bacteria and virus in mental ideas and thoughts around the people there. And some of them are very, very infectious. So, Adhyatma Gyan Nityatvam Tattva Gyanartha Darshanam. Tattva means knowledge of the reality. So, Adhyatma Gyan and Tattva Gyan are almost the same thing. Having that as the goal. Why are you doing all those things? Deep inside, you have set your goal that I want to realize who I am. I've heard in the scriptures that I'm a spiritual being. But that's nice to understand. I want to experience that. That is the Everest that I have set to climb. And I'm not going to lower the idea. Come what may. I'm going to keep on hammering on that. That type of firm determination should be the driving force that will make you get up in the morning in the cold winter, or when you're tired from work and you're not really inclined to sit down for meditation, or some excuses there, I have to go here or there, or some people are coming. And you see, most people find the easiest excuse to dodge their spiritual practice. And that's why when you ask, okay, do you do japa? I say, yeah, Swamiji, I do, but sometimes I miss. And they try to pretend and show that maybe they're missing, 2 days out of 7. But you ask a little bit more, then you might find they probably are doing 2 days out of 7. You see? So that type of fooling around yourself is not going to take us anywhere. These are the disciplines. Sincerity. No one is watching you, but we can't fool our own selves. So, Adhyatma Gyan Nityatvam, Tattva Gyanartha Darshanam, Etad Jnanam iti proktam. These things that he has talked about are called proktam. That means they are spoken of as knowledge. Anything other that, anyatha, other than this, is called ignorance. So, now out of this, verses 7 to 11, a whole list of disciplines are there. We have tried to understand with some insight about how these practices will bring about purification of the mind, creating spiritual samskaras. Wherever we are, that's where we have to start. No one else is going to do this for you. And if we don't do it for ourselves, then we will leave this world in not a very good situation way. So, we have to take the responsibility on our own shoulders and do our best. Take that one step, and you'll find the big boss on top, he is also very responsive. So the divine grace comes. All these are called Purushakara, self-effort. And we discussed last Sunday here in our satsang in detail what is divine grace and how the two work. The two are like the two blades of a scissors. Both are necessary to cut. Okay, so you do your self-effort from below, and divine grace comes from both, from the top, and together it cuts the bondage of Maya. I think that is enough for today. So from verses 12 onwards, Sri Krishna again will introduce what's the nature of Brahman and all that, bit abstract and all those things, trying to inspire us why we should try to realize that and all those type of things. And we'll go through them there, but it's more for information. We have put a little bit extra effort on trying to understand the sadhana part of it. Any questions?
Swamiji, I've got a question.
Mhm.
So, firstly, um, what happens is there is a disgust that develops on certain things the way we do as we do the japa meditation and do the spiritual study and listening. There's a disgust that happens in the mind about external world, people, the parties, the gossips, and even we try to sort of I try to comprehend that what is happening and why is it happening. The question why is it required? So, for example, the cricket World Cup is happening. Even I start questioning that why is a person running 100-meter sprint? What is the joy that he's and the world is cheering on that? So, what is the main purpose of running 100-meter sprint? So I have these kind of questions in my mind. The even like people will start thinking that I'm a fool if I kind of say to them, and I am kind of in a limbo where I can't say to them, and they will they will just make a scene out of the fact that I'm going crazy.
Yeah, there
That
is
is one part.
this world is world of bhoga, enjoyment. For many people, that gives joy. Okay, so you might say, why would somebody want to be the fastest man in the Olympics? All right, because along with that come, of course, the pride that I'm the fastest man. So ego comes, I'm the fastest. Along with that comes many other things, recognition, the medal, and he becomes a hero, and in all those type of things. But he basks and he wants to enjoy that, and that's the reason why he is trying to attain to that, do something exceptional. While if he understood from a spiritual perspective that, hey, look, there have been so many people who have won so many Olympics and gold medals, who remembers then after some time, that joy is only short-lived. Afterwards, everyone forgets everything like this. But the real joy is the spiritual joy, the source within us. And says, so when that understanding comes, that the discrimination comes and he flips around, then he might think like you also.
The problem is the gradual irrelevance that I find about certain things about myself
Yeah,
in
everything
the
is
in the larger
irrelevant here.
context.
Everything is irrelevant, here, ultimately.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
What's the big
yeah.
deal?
So,
People are
so,
born,
so,
people
so
die.
how?
Hmm.
So the question, Swamiji, is how do I sort of manage situations where I have to talk to people, understand, and
You
not
don't
just
have
the
to.
work atmosphere, but
Hmm.
friends and
Yeah.
and
Yeah, you will find your friend circle will reduce very quickly.
the other thing is, Swamiji, that
Hmm.
at times I pity on people and I start thinking that, oh, what are they doing?
Oh,
And that is when
don't.
the ego part comes in, and
Yeah.
I think that I am good and they
Hmm.
are not good. So how am I going to deal with these
Hmm.
situations?
You can tell yourself these are only some intellectual ideas right now in your mind, nothing to be proud of, ignorant of it. See, okay, that you should feel yourself more holier than thou and purer than thou. Different people are in different stages.
Yes, yes.
Externally, in
Hmm.
this God's Maya, He has created people, and some are bound in ignorance, some in knowledge. I'm also not much different from them, 90 and 20 type thing. Okay, so nothing to be proud of. But you might say, hey, look, even in that ignorant man is that same divine that is in me. You see? So that
Yeah.
don't see things superficially. Okay, even
Hmm.
when you say the worldly enjoyment, the bhoga is there. The source of that enjoyment, the divine, is from the spiritual source only. So if anything, everything, if you can trace it back to the spiritual source, then you'll find that you have a way of resolving that issue. So in the
Yeah.
next verses, Sarvata Pani Padam Tat, you see here, all these things will come there. Read the next 4-5 verses from that perspective, and you see if you get something there. So the divine is present everywhere in everything. not only in that spiritual level, it is here everywhere. It's just that we don't have that spiritual insight. We see very superficially, and that's why our judgment and interaction is there. How to develop that insight and then engage with the world. So you can still go to the party, so long you say, in this party, all are Shivas in this form, and can maintain that
Ye-
spirit, right?
ye-
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good way to think, but somehow the
No,
Shivas let me
I,
feel that, come on, come enjoy with me. Come, and then we get dragged into it
but
somehow.
I can understand what you're saying. I can understand what you're
Mm.
saying. But I think it's like a journey that we are all going through, and everybody has an individual journey. But I think the thing to be careful about, because my experience is this thing about the ball. How come so many people are running after the ball? Soccer ball, basketball, cricket ball, and it's like really funny in a way. But I'm very important, and people really enjoy it. But sometimes I have that judgment that I find it very interesting that thousands of people would pay money, travel the world to run after the ball. But then I realize that that's my judgment. It's, so I have to watch my judgment, my thought process, because otherwise you become holier than thou. And that's not very good for anybody. Make sense?
Hey, makes sense? Tell yes, no?
It, no, no, it does,
Mhm.
and I just feel that why even do we play sports? What is the? I've got some
Yeah,
crazy
I know.
questions nowadays. I don't know why,
I
but
know,
See,
I know, I know. But
people
that's how
seek
I was thinking.
happiness. You see, deep inside, we are full of bliss, full of knowledge, immortal beings, Akhand Satchid Ananda. That is our true nature. It is our spiritual DNA. But in ignorance, we are trying to experience that outside. So that becomes sense enjoyment, knowledge of things outside, and trying to preserve this existence in body. So it's not that we are, it's just the direction in which this energy is flowing, it's wrong at some point. Through after many lifetimes and all the experiences, the soul becomes wiser and says, what I am doing is not wrong, but how I am doing it, there's some defect in there. That means I'm trying to find happiness in outside things when really happiness is inside me. See, so that's where the discrimination comes through experience. Experience is a great teacher, and different people sooner or later will say, I've got my fingers burnt many times going out there and never finding that happiness. But that maturity and all that will then make them introverted. So until that reach that U-turn point, the pravritti will keep taking them outside. Okay, to give a good example, it is like this: you are driving a car and looking out in front, and you see a nice lake with trees, and it's a hot day, and you think you're going to go and out there and have a nice dip and swim and all that, but you keep on driving and it keeps on receding away, receding away, receding away. So it's like, that's what this happiness of this world is like. I'm trying to get it, but it keeps on escaping, eluding me. And at some point you will realize this where the buddhi kicks in. It's not now like it's only a mirage. So that is the vairagya point. And you say, I'm not going to keep on driving outside. Now let me find a place to do a U-turn. Okay. And the turning around is called vairagya, and the return part is called nivritti. So in this crowd of people, you will find a lot of people are still thinking there is really a lake there, an oasis there. And a few old souls who have been driving there for so long have woken up and say it's not there. So they're trying to go back. And the crowd think this something is wrong with this guy. Hey, where are you going? Come in this way. And he says, no, I understand out of my own experience, it's not there. But I can't turn you all around. You will go and find out for yourself. And at some point, you too, you'll make the decision. Eh, and I wish you good luck. So that's how the world is going. Big crowd thinking happiness there is in this world. A few are there, one in 1,000, like Sri Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, who has understood good samskaras, good opportunity, whatever is there, previous lifetime, old soul, and they are making their way backwards to the divine home. All right. It's all good. The divine is playing in all these forms. All right. Somewhere he is going to go in the worldly direction and the other one is in the back home direction. We'll talk to him when we meet him. Okay.
Okay, Swamiji.
All right. Good. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tassat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.